Okay, so in medicine right now, we've got these two huge forces smashing together. First, there's telehealth, which has become a totally normal part of how we see our doctors. And then there's the amazing, almost unbelievable rise of powerful artificial intelligence. The large language models we're all hearing about. So what happens when those two worlds don't just meet, but merge? Let's dive in. And look, this is way beyond just making things convenient anymore. We're talking about a total game changer for healthcare, a shift that could streamline how hospitals work, make diagnoses faster and more accurate, and maybe even break down communication barriers. But this is brand new territory. It's pretty much uncharted. So to really get our heads around it, we're going to walk through a brand new study that actually maps out this entire landscape for the very first time. And what this analysis uncovered, wow, it's nothing short of a scientific big bang. For years, research in this area was, well, it was pretty flat, almost nothing. Then, right around 2020, 2021, it just went vertical. It exploded. This isn't just growth. The researchers have the word for it, hypergrowth. The whole field is maturing at this incredible breakneck speed, and that's creating both these massive opportunities and, frankly, some really urgent challenges. All right, so first things first, let's try and wrap our heads around the sheer scale of this explosion. I mean, just how big is this field, and what exactly are we looking at? So the backbone of this whole analysis is a deep dive into 670 scientific papers, published all the way from 1997 up to today. This gives us this incredible bird's eye view of nearly 3 decades of work, which lets us see exactly where this all started and where it's rocketing off to now. And yeah, that word hypergrowth, it's not just some cool-sounding buzzword. The researchers define it really clearly. It's an exponential boom that was lit on fire by two key events. First, you had the COVID-19 pandemic, which basically forced the entire world to shift to telehealth overnight. And second, right on the heels of that, came the arrival of these super advanced AIs like GPT-3 and GPT-4, which suddenly made this tech incredibly powerful and available to everyone. Okay, so with all that activity, you gotta ask the next logical question, right? Who is doing all this work, and where in the world is it all happening? Let's map out the key players and see what the breakdown looks like. What's really wild is just how concentrated all this research is. This heat map makes it absolutely crystal clear. The United States and China are without a doubt the global leaders here. You can just see from the darker shading how much work they're pumping out. They are the epicenters of this whole revolution in healthcare tech. And it's not just about countries either. The focus is also institutional. A really small group of top-tier universities are basically driving the whole train. Harvard University is way out in front with 41 publications, followed by its medical affiliates, and then the University of Queensland. It really points to a high-resource, super competitive environment. Okay, so we've got the how fast and the who. Now for the really juicy part. What are these researchers actually building? What are the hot topics getting all the attention? And maybe just as important, what's being left in the dust? To get to the bottom of this, the researchers did something really cool. They created this fascinating thematic map. The best way to think about it is like a city map, but for ideas. On one axis, you have centrality. That's how important a topic is to the whole field. And on the other axis, you have density. That's how developed and well-researched that topic is. It's this brilliant way of showing which ideas are in the bustling downtown core and which ones are kind of out in the quiet suburbs. And when you really look at what that map is telling us, this huge contrast just jumps right out at you. In the driver's seat, the paper calls them motor themes, or the core technologies: telemedicine, telehealth, and AI itself. These are super central, really well-developed. But then, way over on the sidelines, as niche themes, you find these incredibly important topics like ethics and privacy. They are way less central and way less developed. And that gap, right there, that's the single most important, most critical finding of this entire study. And this leads us right to the single most critical takeaway from this whole analysis. We're not talking about a small gap here. We're talking about a massive blind spot, a really dangerous disconnect between how fast the tech is moving and the safety nets we need to keep it in check. The authors have a name for this. They call it a strategic disconnect. The technology is just sprinting ahead, moving at this incredible pace, while all the essential rules and guidelines for safety, for ethics, for oversight, they're all just struggling to keep up. And this isn't just some academic problem. It has very real, very serious consequences.
So what are those consequences? Well, first, there's the risk of AI hallucinations, which is when the model just makes up false medical information, stuff that could lead to a really dangerous misdiagnosis. Second, there's the risk of unfair biases, where an AI trained on old data just ends up making existing health disparities even worse. And finally, the huge risk of data breaches, putting our most sensitive personal health information at risk.
So how do we fix this, right? How do we close this dangerous gap and actually build a future where this amazing technology is not only powerful but also safe and something we can all rely on? The research actually lays out a pretty clear path forward for everybody involved. It really boils down to a three-part plan. First up, for healthcare providers, they need to develop digital literacy and get training so they can use these tools effectively and ethically. Second, for the developers, they have to prioritize what's called trustworthy AI. That means building fairness, transparency, and privacy into these systems from the ground up, not as an afterthought. And third, for policymakers, they need to create regulations that are agile, that can actually keep up with the tech, while also making sure everyone has fair access to it. You know, when you strip everything else away, this entire analysis, all this data, it really just comes down to one big question for all of us. We are right at the beginning of bringing a powerful new intelligence onto our healthcare team. The tech is here. Its growth is unstoppable. The real challenge, the one we have to solve now, is making sure that as it gets smarter and more powerful, it also becomes something we can fundamentally trust with our health and with our lives.